Okay, well, Ron, you're back again.
Yep.
Episode 2 of this 5-part segment that we kind of joked around about last time. And excited for this conversation today because it wasn't on our list of topics to talk about. You and I were chatting last night quickly. You were watching some fire teaching by a pastor that's on YouTube like crazy. And we kind of just started talking a little bit about personal stuff of
Yeah.
around pain, obedience, purpose, and kind of around this 2020 kind of like what's going on. And why don't I just send it over to you and you kind of let us know what you're feeling. We don't have to dive right in right away, just something that's kind of been on your mind and your heart the last 24, 48 hours of what you've been experiencing with the idea of pain, obedience, and purpose.
Sure. Well, it's a good topic of discussion, the pain, obedience, and purpose part of it, because um, one of the things that strikes me right now in this time that we find ourselves in, and what I'm hearing from different people, and reflecting on my own life and interacting with you outside of MakeWake podcast, is
Mm-hmm.
the reality of there is so much hurt right now, and there's so much pain that is out there. And one of the things that I reflect on the last number of months, and I've recognized that um, we talk about the pain, the interruptions, the discomforts, and so oftentimes we just kind of view it as it's just part of life. But 2020 has been one of those years where there's a lot of us that are struggling in
Mm-hmm.
leadership. In particular, I think in leadership roles, doesn't matter if you're in business or church. And talked to a friend recently about just the idea of leadership in her context, and she just was honest with me. She said, Ron, I get home after a long day of
Mm-hmm.
leading and answering and directing and all that comes with her job. And she says, I just get home and I want to sit on the couch and curl up and go to sleep and then get up and do it the next day. And one of the things that I said to her was, I get it.
Yeah.
I identify with that. We are, in a context like, leadership, we have not, we lead through difficult times often, but this seems to be unusually difficult on so many levels because things change so quickly.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a certain amount of frustration. There's a certain amount of, you got to be kidding me. Um,
And in
I'll
some
be,
areas, it's like a lot of leaders right now have been and feel like they're all in the same playing field of they're all dealing with kind of in ways the same thing of
yeah.
separation, anxiety, stress, the pain that we're talking about, how to be obedient in this time
Hmm.
of leading. And
Yeah.
it's I don't know if leaders have ever been all on the same playing field in ways. Yeah, they're all different. We're all in different
Sure.
contexts and stuff, but
Yeah.
we basically all are dealing with the exact same thing at some point with this 2020 season.
Yeah. Because you move forward with something and you think you're making plans, and you feel good about those plans, and you've consulted your team, you've talked about it, you've come up with a strategy, you've come up with, here's how we're going to go about this. And then, I had this a couple weeks ago, actually more than a couple weeks ago, probably four or 5 weeks ago. I had shot a video,
Mm-hmm.
an update video, and I was super excited about the video. It was about going back to physical gatherings and our locations in our organization at Vital Point Church. And video went well. And an hour later, I get a text from one of our staff, and she said, Ron, check your email. And I checked my email, and it was the decline of the contract for one of our schools that we rent, and
Yeah.
we had to just cancel the video shoot. And David, I think it's absolutely essential that we have this conversation, because it's difficult to hype leadership and talk about opportunities and be in front of people and be positive. And right
Mm-hmm.
now in church world, we're in front of cameras and we're trying to motivate someone through a screen somewhere, and it actually gets, full transparency. There's sometimes I get super frustrated when I hear about all the opportunities that are in front of us.
Yeah.
I don't deny the fact that there's opportunities, because right now, as this is being recorded, there's something that our church is going to be doing in the next number of weeks, revealing that's pretty incredible. Um, but the opportunities are there, but I think that that's the reality of pain or interruptions or disruptions or whatever we want to call them.
Mm-hmm.
They have the potential to produce in us a resilience, have the opportunity to produce in us a strength and a depth of faith in life that maybe we would never get if we hadn't have gone through some of that pain. But the problem is that we don't often get our minds right as we face these things. We actually probably more approach them emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
And when we approach them emotionally, then all of a sudden it gets, it gets the disruption, the distraction, the interruption, whatever it is, the pain, the resistance. We no longer see above it. We no longer can see beyond it. All we see is in it. When our emotions are completely,
Mm.
it's not that our emotions are wrong or bad. It's just that when they go to the forefront, um, I know because I'm a pastor, I often have these verses that come to my mind. Like James talks about, consider it all joy. Consider it
Yeah.
great joy. Consider it
Great
great
joy. Yeah.
joy. Right? That word consider is bring to your mind. And I believe that's a critical piece of understanding this season that we find ourselves in, is that even though there's going to be moments and times where we just want to quit, like I mean, we're both tired right now. We're recording this late in an
Mm-hmm.
evening. You're tired. I'm tired. And so people are probably going to get a little bit more raw material from the two of us. Um, a week and a half ago, I left my office, and on a Thursday afternoon, and literally contemplated quitting. Like, I almost described it as a day I almost
Mm-hmm.
quit,
Yeah.
um, because the mental exhaustion, it's not physical exhaustion. I'm fine physically. I keep fit. I'm healthy but my mental state was just beyond.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so I got home, I went for a ride, and that helped quite a bit. But there was still that I entertained. Why am I doing this? Why am I putting
Hmm.
myself through this? So, the emotional side of it was, I was getting frustrated. I was getting
Yeah.
angry. I was getting the fear. I mean, the fear, can creep into, like, what is the future like? When we're recording this, there's all these things that are going on again in our news, and numbers are climbing, and we're all like, oh no, we finally got to a 30% capacity, and what happens if they shut that down again? And it's like, it's that roller coaster of, but here's where I think that we often misunderstand, and this is what I was thinking about when I texted you last night about this idea, is I actually did some reflection on this. But the first Sunday of 2020,
Mm-hmm.
I did a message at our church, and I talked about my word for 2020, and I have no idea where it came from, to be honest with you. It was the word obedience.
Yeah.
And in my mind, my obedience was more geared around, my obedience is going to lead us to new things.
Yeah.
My obedience as a leader and as a pastor is going to be like, God's going to like download, the biggest dream of 2020. Because as you know, I couldn't find that vision and dream for 2020. Like all these other pastors were talking about 2020 vision. And I was like, I even confessed to you as staff, I was like, man, I got nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'm like, I'm going to be obedient. This is the first Sunday. And
Yeah.
then the next day, our trailer was stolen.
And you're like, oh shoot.
Yeah, literally. Like it was, whoa, where's the obedience in this? And then I started reflecting, because along these past 6-7 months, I've had to be obedient
Mm.
to things that I believe God, um, through prayer, through counsel, through wisdom, through scripture, revealed to me things that I needed to be doing out of obedience, but the obedience caused pain.
Okay, so my question for you is, do you think obedience leads to pain? Like if people are like, man, like if obedience,
Yeah.
if there's going to be pain in the obedience, like why would I be obedient to it? Like what's the point? Like that's I don't want to be
Yeah.
I don't want to be in pain physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, even think of the fear creeping into the pain. Uh like yeah, do you think
I guess that's a mindset, David. I think that's a mindset of
mm,
um, understanding who I'm becoming,
hmm,
so that in my obedience, I understand that there's going to be levels of pain, but yet that pain is going to produce in me and fulfill maybe something greater than what I could ever see or imagine.
hmm,
That James talks about that, consider it great joy, but there's also that element of so that you may grow, that
yeah.
these things that happen in our lives can produce strength. Um and I think that you're right. You're exactly right. I mean, if I know that obedience, like think about the different personalities in the Old Testament, like,
Hmm,
hey Moses, like you're 80 and I want you to go lead my people from
yeah.
from Egypt, like, and then look what happened to him. Like, he didn't want to do this, but God says, "Yeah, you got to do this." And so he's obedient. And the
Yeah.
obedience led to what? Like unbelievable amounts of pain.
Hmm,
And then when God finally did deliver the people, they wander around the wilderness and then they start whining and complaining. Why did you lead us out here? As a leader, it's nothing worse than hearing whining, complaining
hmm.
people, right? And so out of his obedience it led to, but yet it was leading to something. And so I think that's part of, I think it's far better to lean into the obedience, even if it does produce a certain level of pain, than to stay stagnant and boring
Uncomfortable.
and comfortable. I think comfort is deadly.
Well, let's get serious here. I think comfort leads to a whole different side of pain.
Sure.
I think comfort would lead to a pain that um, might be described as laziness or self-destruction, or because the
Mhm.
comfortable life it can be dangerous because pride can come in.
Sure.
You deserve more. Look what I've
Mhm.
done. Look who I am. And I think being comfortable can just allow your mind and your heart to step into a lifestyle that um, it's like a woe is me kind of
Yeah.
lifestyle. And I think that leads to a pain that can destroy so many areas of your life. And what we're talking about of pain of obedience and walking through and walking in, not just walking around. I think there's
Yeah.
that pain that you're talking about is so fruitful, and there's like a blessing in disguise in it, right? And I
Right.
love how you said
And
you become something.
yeah,
You're
but
becoming.
absolutely. And I think what you're hitting on is a cultural norm
Mhm.
that leads us to believe that the priority or the highest part of our lives is that you're supposed to be happy,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
So if you believe, and there's nothing wrong with being happy, but if you believe that, like, I'll talk to different people about their kids, and they're like,
Mhm.
well, just as long as they're happy. I'm like, really? Like, you just want them to be happy? So what does that mean? They're going to avoid any sort of pain?
Mhm.
Um, if happiness is, y- I think marriages are ruined because people are led to believe that
Mm.
in marriage you're supposed to be happy. Nothing wrong with being happy. Desiree and I, we're happy, um, but it's not the pinnacle of marriage. And I think what happens for a lot of people is that if they look at marriage and you're not happy anymore, like, hello, like, I'm out of here,
Yeah.
right? Or it's the Velcro marriage. Oh, you know what? You're not making me happy anymore. I'm gonna pull this Velcro apart, and I'm gonna go and find someone else that's gonna make me happy.
Yeah.
And
Because
so
I
I
deserve to be happy.
I deserve to be happy.
And the pain that you're giving me is not my pain. I should not be experiencing the pain,
Right.
the struggle and the fighting and the arguing. And like, I don't deserve
Yeah.
that. I'm told by my cultural moment that I'm living in the context that I deserve to be happy. Always search for the best for you.
Right. Yeah.
That brings a toxic pain in, where you like, you got to look at it like, when you're always thinking that you deserve something, your pride is just constantly going up, and then you think, well, I deserve
Yeah.
this, so I
Yeah.
should be able to make the choices that actually are going to hurt other people as well. But
Hmm.
you might not see that because you are consuming everything that you feel like you desire and you need to, because culture's told you that.
Yeah.
Like, I have such a hard time with the moment that we live in right now, because it, the social media warriors, all the, like, the fancy quotes, graphics on social, like, that get reposted all the time. I'm just like, you're literally telling yourself that you need to be the happiest you need to be. You deserve to be the happiest. But the thing
Hmm.
is, that stuff all leads to pain, because the high of the love and the joy that you've tried to capture onto is just so minuscule. It's gone in a second. And then you're back into the pit of pain, fear,
Hmm.
discouragement, searching, grasping at stuff. And I don't think that's living in an obedient life of becoming something.
Right. Right. If you look at the life of Jesus, you realize that he learned how to be obedient through his suffering.
Hmm.
Um, Hebrews 5 talks about this. I believe it's Hebrews 5. And there's a piece of this that, for a follower of Jesus, and I know that not everyone is followers of Jesus that are listening to this podcast, which is awesome, that people are listening with all different backgrounds and beliefs and so on. But, you know, he learned how to trust the Father
Hmm.
through obedience, but the obedience came through the suffering. And I think that if we are to understand the depth of what it means to live out faith, it's obedience. It's this longing and desire to um, not allow culture to influence how I live out my faith, that I'm going to live in obedience. So I've got I got a Bible sitting here. So let me find it. So the verse that I used, I believe, back in January, Philippians 1:20 out of the Passion translation says, "No matter what, I will continue to hope and passionately cling to Christ, so that He will be openly revealed through me before everyone's eyes." I love that phrase in this translation of it. No matter what, I will continue to hope and passionately cling to Christ, so that He will openly revealed through my life. And that verse is obedience, right? That no matter what I believe God is calling me to do, no matter what choices or decisions I have to make, because in leadership, especially right now, there are leaders that are having to make, and they know they have to make these choices and decisions that are taking steps of obedience. But man, it's tough. If you're a leader that, like, at times, like, I want people to like me. I don't like it when people don't like me. Like, and I don't strive for people to like me all the time, but there's a part of me as a leader, like, I know that I'm going to make decisions at times that people will leave our church, that
Yeah.
people will ghost us, that people will, um, periodically they'll send, an email, but most people aren't courageous enough to, come to you and say,
Yeah.
"Hey, I'm out," based on a decision or a choice that you made. And I think that that's sad, because you're trying to live your life as a leader to honor God. You
Mhm.
want others to do the same thing, but it doesn't
Yeah.
always work that way. But
I guess a question I have for you as well is, when it comes to pain, when it comes to time of really being pressed and not knowing when to turn,
mhm,
um, or when to keep going straight and walking through it, when that pain just feels like it's okay, God, I know I'm being obedient. There's pain that I'm like I'm actually feeling physically, emotionally. It's
right.
draining me. Um, I looked online to see what people were saying about pain, and
Okay.
the a big thing was people were asking, in my pain, does that mean God's not around? Because
Oh, oh,
it feels like it's quiet. You don't feel the purpose. You may feel the obedience, but the pain and the purpose are sorry, the pain is a lot higher than the purpose, and the people are asking, is God in my pain, even though when I'm walking obediently and I don't see him, I don't hear him, I don't feel him?
yeah. So those are really good um, questions, because we live by faith, not by sight. So what we don't live by. My faith is not based on a feeling that God is close to me. My faith is based on a promise.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. In my pain, I claim the promise that God will never leave me nor forsake me.
Hmm.
I claim the promise that God is my refuge and my strength,
Hmm.
not based on how I feel, not based on whether I sense his presence or not. Like, I've come through some of the toughest seasons of my leadership life, and I have felt pain that wasn't, I didn't feel God,
Mm-hmm.
but I had to find myself in moments, if I'm going to have a breakthrough in this pain, I've got to claim the promise,
How do you claim it though?
and just claim and just repeat it, and just
Constantly.
claim these promises each and every day. When doubts start creeping in, when fear starts creeping in, when anger starts creeping in, when you feel like you're literally shattered on the ground, broken, where you can't control your weeping, it is finding that space to claim and proclaim. Okay, here's
Mm.
where you want to go.
Mm.
You're
Yeah.
going to claim and proclaim the promises of God. So the proclamation through praise. Oh, here we go. So when you think about the claiming, the proclamation of praise, that takes me on a journey in my pain to find the goodness of God.
Mm.
Will it be today? Will it be tomorrow? Doesn't matter. It is that continual cause, that continual place where I go to in my lament, in my sorrow, in the depth of my confusion. I have to consider, bring to thought, bring to mind, the proclaiming the promises through praise. Um, this is all just happening on the fly.
That's gold.
Because as I reflect on it, like, you can't see it, but just over to my left, be your right, is the chair, is the couch that I sat in for hours, hours, um, with my Bible, with my journal, uh, not sure if God was even listening. Well,
Mm.
what was interesting is that God did show up at times, because that's the thing I think happens is, even in the depth of our pain, and as we proclaim the promises of God and we praise those promises,
Mm.
what happens is it puts us in tune with the voice of God. Will he speak all the time? No, because God doesn't speak all the time. But there's going to be moments when God does speak, and you have to be ready. You have to be in tune with him. So for me, I was at some of the lowest of lows in the last number of months. I forced myself into what we've been talking about. And then, in a moment, in a coffee with a pastor friend, he dropped a line in on top of our conversation, was of God. And it was a word given to me by this other pastor, by God. Why? Because I was on a journey of proclaiming the promises and
Claiming and proclaiming.
claiming the promises and proclaiming through praise. Oh,
Mhm.
there you go. Tweet that, buddy.
No, I think that's key is for leaders and people like anyone really. It doesn't
Anybody.
just have to be leaders. It's anyone when we are feeling the pain, like it's
Yeah.
just rising and
Yeah.
rising and rising. I think that's a
Right.
great reminder how you said you have to claim it, but also what's so beautiful um about pain is when you claim the promise that God is not going to leave you. He's going to be with you. Once you claim it for yourself and start proclaiming it, it becomes a way of life.
Yeah.
It becomes a way that you live. And that's when you start living a life where people are like, okay, wow, I know what you're going through. How is your
Right.
head on straight right now?
Yeah. Yeah.
I think that's a beautiful piece of what an individual can do that's of faith, exploring faith, walking through it, doubting it, questioning it, claim it, proclaim it, and
Yeah.
also live it.
Yeah.
So other people can see that there is a hope, that there is a faith that will show them love, that will show them grace and mercy, where their pain, that this world is maybe overwhelming someone or consuming someone, where that pain does not have to be the end.
Mm-hmm.
I love
No.
the fact that claiming the good news, claiming the thing that God loves you and cares for you and sent his son to die for you,
Mm-hmm.
he put the ending on the ending that we all need to know and love,
Yeah.
is that we don't
Well,
have to be
and
consumed by it.
no, and I think that that's a life of faith, is that continually going to the source. Like we have this expectation of God that I believe is a false expectation that some super Christians talk about. Like I prayed and God answered.
Oh.
Um, I prayed and God spoke. Um, yeah, God can. But here's the thing: if we're going through pain, okay, so we're going through pain, and we're struggling, and we're really in the valley. Okay, we're
Mm-hmm.
in the valley. There is a posture that we need to take through the valley, even if we don't hear his voice or sense his presence. And someone comes to you and says, well, I thought your God was going to answer you. You know what? No, there's no guarantee he's going to answer me on this,
Mm-hmm.
but I am standing firmly on this truth that he's not going to leave me. That just because I don't feel like he doesn't love me doesn't mean he's not loving me. Matter of fact, just because you don't feel God doesn't mean he's not there either.
Yeah.
And so for me, as I think about clinging, like as no matter what, that's what that Philippians 1:20 said. No matter what,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to hold on to, I'm going to cling to, and maybe that's what's happening right now for a lot of people in this season we find ourselves in. They're going like, oh, see, like, look, look at my life, and it's falling apart, and this pandemic, and I've seen so many people, man, just let go.
Why do you feel like it's easier for people to let go? Because this culture that
Yeah.
yeah,
Okay. Go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I
this
cut you off.
culture
Go.
that we live in is in this moment that we live in is so beautiful, but like let's just be honest, we can see through the cracks. I feel
Right.
like it looks so great on the outside, but there's so many cracks in this culture of
Right.
the behind the closed doors of the personal lives of leaders and family members and just everyone in general.
Hmm.
There's just a piece of it where my heart is just so broken for people that feel like you can just will it away.
Right.
And let's be
Mm.
clear here. We've all tried to will something away, and it might seem to feel like it works, but that pain still is sitting so deep inside of a heart or a soul or a mind
Mm-hmm.
that's just like, why is this still here? I thought I dealt
Yeah.
with it. I thought
Yeah.
I did
So,
it on my own.
yeah, yeah, exactly. I think a resilient, faith-filled person
Mm-hmm.
will know how to walk through uncertainty, claiming and proclaiming the
Hmm.
promises of God, but that only comes through obedience. And the more we are obedient, the more we can trust. Because even though sometimes obedience does lead to more pain, that pain leads to something good.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that right now in my own life through my own personal pain in the last number of months.
Hmm.
Um, I'm seeing it in other settings, like in other churches, in our church,
Yeah.
and I don't think we would be where we are if we hadn't had taken steps of obedience in the past that would allow us to take steps of obedience now.
Hmm.
And small steps of obedience lead to larger steps of obedience, and that's part of our journey. And um, it's let's I mean we keep saying let's be honest and truthful. That's like we're being honest and truthful through this whole thing, but um, it a life of faith. People I think too often believe that the life of faith is up and to the right.
Like
And
the graph you're talking about, right? Like the
yeah, like the
graph of,
graph. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what I mean. And the reality is a life of faith is one of meandering
Hmm.
and wandering, and it's one of moments and seasons where you feel like you're nailing it, like,
Yeah.
dude, I got this. And then there's moments where like you're freaking out. You're like, what's going on? Like, I don't,
Mhm.
you know, but that's the journey of faith. And, and I mean, the psalmist, David writes in Psalm 23, I go through the valley of the shadow of death. That's a reality. We go through the valley. And too many people just want to stand in that pain. They want to stand going, "Oh, woe was me. Look at my life. And then they play the victim, and then they
Yeah.
go, and maybe they don't do it quite like that. Like, well, looking around. If someone's watching this on YouTube, it's like that. Maybe not quite. Maybe just went too far. But um, the reality is that too many just stop in the pain and they don't realize that, oh, God actually wants to move me through this. Oh, and by the way, there's actually something on the other side of it that's good,
Mhm.
but it's obedience in the midst of the pain. Um, and we're talking about two things: obedience that leads to pain, and a pain that we have to be obedient in. And so there's kind of that two thing happening there. But um,
Yeah, but that's there's two sides to everything though, right? With life where eh, we've got to be obedient people.
mm-hmm.
I love, okay, so I've something that I love is the question of who are you becoming in life?
Okay,
Becoming is this beautiful thing of there's going to be something revealed to you. There's going to be milestones that you're going to hit in your life of growth, and there's going to be pain in that.
right.
Becoming something. I heard someone say, I wish people weren't called human beings. I wish we would help our culture know that we're human becomings. Sounds
Uh,
super
uh,
awkward to say, but
hmm,
there's so much more potential in the identity, because identity of us is we're human beings. We're being something. We're acting something.
mm-hmm.
But if you can allow your mind and your heart and your soul and the trajectory of your life, if you're talking about the chart, but like if it, like, we don't want to be just like, oh, we've got to start going straight up to the right. Like that's what success looks like. That's what a good life looks like. But if we
Right.
understand that wandering is part of our life, questioning,
Mm-hmm.
doubting,
Mm-hmm.
knowing what we're doing, killing it, seasons of not.
Mm-hmm.
But if you know you're becoming something in that, I think that allows the pain not to sting so much. I think so many
Yeah.
times that as human beings, human becomings, use the
Human becomings. I
human
never heard of that before,
becomings.
actually.
Yeah. I love how you said it. In some people like to walk in the pain and stop and say, "Woe is me."
Yeah.
It's like, oh, now I've got people's attention.
Hmm.
They need to help me, or I deserve attention, or I need
Yeah,
attention
because
right now.
yeah, because I think that, the thought that just came to my mind, and it's right or wrong, is the moment we start playing the victim in our pain is the moment we short circuit the goodness that God wants to do in our lives.
Absolutely. I think
I mean, you
that's
think about that. You play the victim, it's all about you, right?
yeah.
And you're trying to get people on board with you being you're a victim,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the only thing that happens when we play the victim card is that we short circuit any good that God is trying to do. And God wants to bring good out of our pain. He's the master at
Using an
redeeming,
underdog.
yeah, and redeeming stories.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the message of faith, is that redeeming stories. When Jesus walks out of that tomb and says, "I'm back," it's like this. It's the Christian faith is the greatest comeback story ever.
Mm-hmm.
It's like everyone thought that Jesus was done, like he's buried, he's gone. We saw him crucified, and then he comes out of the tomb. I mean, that's the reality of what we're talking about here. Is because of the fact that he walked out of this tomb, and the fact that the power that resurrected Jesus from the grave is the same power that's available to a person who understands what it means to
Mm.
follow Jesus. The moment you start playing victim is the moment you start saying, well, I think God doesn't know what he's doing, and I don't think he's powerful enough to bring anything good out of this, so I'm just going to stand here and wallow. And
And
listen,
try to do it
people,
myself.
yeah, people, I wallow. I mean,
Yeah.
there's times I've done that.
That's the battle of the flesh, though, right?
Sure,
Like,
sure it is.
that's a whole can of worms, right? Battling the
Yeah,
flesh
yeah.
of who you are, and constantly. And I think it's
So David, you talked about who you're becoming, and I think that that's an important aspect of even understanding obedience and faith and
mhm.
purpose and pain and all that. Um, I keep going to the Bible, so I've been
Yeah,
thinking
do
about
it,
this a
man. Do
lot.
it. Do it.
James says in the Passion Translation, he says this. Um, uh, My fellow believers, when it seems as though you are facing nothing but difficulties, see it as invaluable opportunity to experience the greatest joy that you can. For you know that when your faith is tested, it stirs up power within you to endure all things.
Mhm.
And then as your endurance grows even stronger, it will release perfection into every part of your being until there is nothing missing and nothing lacking. So it's a fine tuning of who we are. The resistance, the pain, the struggle, the interruption, is this developing of an endurance in our lives that produces what he talks about, the place where you're not, nothing is missing and nothing is lacking. What is that? That's maturity. Maturity only comes through pain and resistance.
Yeah.
Yes, you have spiritual disciplines and formations. Yes, I get that. Yes, we have the Holy Spirit that we can surrender to, that the Spirit of God transforms us in our faith journeys. Yes. But when you think about the greatest opportunities of growth for those things all to collide
Mm-hmm.
is when there's resistance. A tree needs the wind to produce strong roots. You cannot have a strong tree without strong roots, and how that happens is the tree continues to get wind resistant. The wind pushes against it and creates that, and then the roots get stronger and stronger and stronger. And I think for us, we have to focus on, which is difficult. Let's not joke around about
Yeah.
that. It is
Yeah.
difficult,
Yeah.
because there's time in my pain. I just want to start slapping people, you know.
Was it you joking around one time? You wish there was
Yeah.
like 1 hour a day where you could
No,
just.
no, it was me. It was me. It was a couple weeks ago. It's like let's pick 2 hours a day, 2 hours on Friday from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. that we can just freely slap stupid people.
Oh, holy moly!
I know.
No, but
See, I was having a weak moment.
yeah, no, it's true though. It's true.
uh,
We do need resistance to become more mature in our life,
yeah, yeah,
to move forward, to take steps of risk,
yeah.
understand what it means to
And that
grow.
sucks. That sucks.
Oh, it does. Yeah, absolutely does. But as we, I think we should close up here.
Yep.
And
It's really super late.
it's late for us, but you guys might be listening to this early in the day or something like that. But
Yeah.
what's something that you could say, just encourage someone quickly
Oh yeah.
that might be experiencing pain like never before? Or
Okay.
yeah.
Um, I was thinking about this. In the midst of the depth of pain, don't make any big life decisions.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
when I got home a few weeks ago, the day I wanted to quit,
Almost quit.
the day I almost quit. I said to Desiree, to my wife, I said, to your mom, I said, hey, I want to sell everything and move to Costa Rica. And she didn't want to because of the grandbaby. But anyway, um, I think that that's important to understand is, and realize that in one way or another, the pain does eventually go away. And if it's a health pain, maybe because maybe it's a depth of health pain that you just recognize as a person that you're not going to recover from this, is that you can have a trust in Jesus that he will bring that pain to an end after you take your final breath. But then there's also understanding as the generalization of pain in our lives
Hmm.
is that there are seasons and they could be as long as they need to be. But make sure in the midst of those seasons, you surround yourself with some really, really wise, solid people. Because that's what I did.
Hmm.
Um, our automatic human nature in the midst of these moments is to believe that we're the only ones ever going through anything like this. And often what we do is we retreat from the people that we need to be around.
Hmm.
And obviously your mom was one. And I have two or three other men, I should say, that I literally spent almost every day talking to, texting, calling, and trying to navigate my own pain.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a piece of it too. We should never, ever, ever navigate pain on our own, because the enemy would love to make you believe all the lies that you tell yourself. But when you
Yeah.
have trusted, wise friends in your life that speak truth, they're not going to let you get away with that crap.
Hmm.
And they give perspective. So
Yeah.
I would say to anyone who's going through pain, whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, you can really begin to find a way to uh, get those wise people, and not the ones that just nod their heads and say the things that you want them to say.
Yeah.
You've got to find those people that really can go at it. And it's
Hmm.
like, yeah, I didn't want that, but I needed it.
Yeah.
So
That's huge.
anyway, that's what I've been thinking about a lot lately.
That's cool.
Hopefully that covers a lot with obedience, pain, purpose.
Yeah, I think it's some beautiful truths in there, and just want to say thank you again for joining
Yep.
us, even though it's super late, dude.
Super late
And
recording.
super late recording on a
Yeah.
busy week in a time that is full of pain, obedience, and purpose.
Yeah.
You've been experiencing breakthrough in that, and I know your
Yep.
heart and your desire is to have other people experience that as well. And
100%.
so I want to say thanks so much for just leading so well and just being honest with the conversation today.
Yep. Absolutely. It's a pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No
We get
problem.
to do this again in a month, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Well,
You
that's the
promised
episode.
you promised a 5-part series. I'm like, oh my goodness,
Oh yeah, that's what
dude.
we do around here. We just sucker people in to getting them in, and
Yeah.
they can't leave now. So yeah,
Yeah.
I
All
love
right.
it.
Sounds good.
Well, that's the episode, everyone. Thanks so much for joining today.